Well, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Oh, nothing new here.
Nothing at all, huh?
Nothing at all.
Who's your fuzzy friend?
You know, this is Copper, currently named Copper, probably going to be renamed. He's a 2-year-old mini poodle who I'm going to train to be a therapy dog. And so if you're around our office, you'll probably notice this guy at my feet, which is where he has been every moment of every day since I got him on Saturday. One of my friends said to me, you know, I have 2 children, they're 7 and 4. One of my friends goes, so you just decided to up the level of difficulty in your life by adding a dog. He's already halfway there to therapy dog, and he's the one who's helping me. True. I mean, look at this animal just sitting here.
He is, from having spent the week with him, most of the week, he is the calmest dog I've ever met.
And he's a poodle.
Yeah,
They're
which is
energetic.
unusual. Yeah, they're kind of oxymorons.
He's a special guy. So he will be right here at my feet always. Forever.
Yep.
That's what's new.
How
here.
old is he?
He's 2.
2 years old.
So he's full size. He will always look like a teddy bear.
And I think I actually learned something from this. Like, there's actually such a thing as calm dogs, like just totally mellow, chill dogs.
Yeah. And
if I didn't know better,
the energy in the room.
I know he does. My dogs came in to see him, and they're all wagging their tails and going crazy. And he was like this. And they went like, oh, okay.
They all kind of follow.
They all went right down.
It's pretty cool.
Very calm. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. And the kids,
it's amazing.
You know, I think all children should have the responsibilities, you know, for caring for a pet. It's important growth.
Agreed. Congratulations.
Okay.
You scored.
See you in a few.
Well, on that note, welcome to A Place of Possibility. I am Richard Del Monte.
I'm Angela Ray.
We're happy that you're here with us. What are we talking today? Is it anything uplifting?
Super uplifting.
Oh.
We're going so morbid today. We are talking about end of life, but
death.
What else is new? We're always talking about death around here. You know, if you're in our office, I'm going to ask
you're dead to me.
When? No, not like that.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to ask you things like, when are you going to die? How are you going to die? Because they're important conversations in financial planning. But specifically today, we're going to be talking about funeral and burial planning. It's not something any of us really want to think about, but if you do think it through before you pass away, you could save your loved ones not only money, but some grief as well. And I think it's a gift that you can give to people.
Yeah. Certainly we'll learn a lot about that.
Yes.
Process.
And we have a really awesome guest to help us through this conversation today.
Great. But first, we have a news update, breaking news. We should get like some kind of a noise, right? Yeah, I've heard somebody had a braying donkey, you know, kind of thing for breaking news. Yeah. Like so you may probably know that at the end of last year, Congress passed a new retirement plan law. It was called Secure 2.0 because there was a Secure Act 1.0, and it made sweeping changes to the way your retirement plans are administered. And one of the things you're probably aware of is that they increased the age that you have to start taking what are called required minimum distributions from your IRA plans and your 401ks, et cetera. So it used to be 72. Well, for a long time, it was 70 and a half.
70 and a half.
And they made it 72 a couple of years ago. And then the next year, 73. And if you're a little bit younger, it could be all the way up to 75. So that's one thing.
This is great news.
Right, it was. And it's good, you know, especially for guys like me.
Wait, you mean old people who will never stop working?
People that are closer to the distribution date that don't want to take distributions, right? Yeah.
Old people.
So she never lets up on me. It's crazy. Never misses an opportunity to.
Now I dare you to find your thought.
Exactly right. No, I got it. I've got it. No. Not challenging.
Okay, I'm having too much fun today.
Let's see. What did I think? Okay, no, yeah. So there was a provision in the Secure 2.0 that required retirement plans to change the tax treatment on what are called catch-up provisions. So if you're 50 or older, you get to put in more money into your 401k than the people that are under 50 because they want you to catch up so you can get retired earlier or more securely.
We all wait until we're 50 to start saving.
Right. And that amount for this year is $7,500. And so that's for 401k plans. It's like $1,000 for IRAs. So the new law requires that for 401ks, they have to, anybody that makes over $145,000, why that number? It's the law. But that's just Congress. Somebody's idea, right?
Is this a single person or if it's an
an individual married or whatever?
Okay.
If they make more than $145,000 at their job payroll, that's the only thing the employer knows. They don't know what else you got going on.
Right.
And then the catch-up contributions that you make can't be deductible. They have to be Roth. And so that was going to take effect on January 1st of 2024. But now the administrators and the companies are like, we can't implement this yet. It's too hard for us.
Yeah.
So IRS just came out and said, okay, you have until 2026 before those contributions, those catch-up contributions for people over 50 who make more than $145,000 have to be Roth. So in the meantime, you can go Roth or deductible and you get your choice. But after that, no more.
Oh boy, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, a lot of us do it for the deduction. And at the same time, if you put it in Roth, you do get it all back, all the growth and stuff tax-free. And tax diversification is really important during retirement. It's just there are those people who in a really high tax bracket who could benefit tremendously from that deduction that won't get it.
Yeah.
But it's also 7,000, you know, so it's not a make or break.
Not the end of the world.
And forcing people into more Roth money. I
think the Congress is thinking if you make more than 145,000, you're not doing so bad.
I guess so.
Of course, they don't live in the Bay Area, so
well, we'll see if this gets kicked again. I mean, this is going to be hard to administer.
Right.
And you know, so speaking of taxes, just a reminder: if you live in California and you were in one of the counties that was affected by the flooding this year, which is most of them, you still have until October 16th. It's the next business day to file your tax return. You also still have until that date to make your IRA, your Roth, your SEP. For most self-employed people, your solo 401k contributions for 2022. So if you haven't done that yet, you could still do all of this so long as you haven't filed your taxes. And, you know, if you owe, it behooves you to wait to file your taxes until October 16th, obviously. If you are, speaking of losing your place in the notes, okay.
But the delay is you can earn interest on your money, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, with interest rates at 5% annual right now, leave it in the account until the 15th and then pay the tax. Do not give the government their money before it's owed.
Right.
So there's been a lot of back and forth about this, but October 16th is also the date by which you must pay your taxes for 2022, but also your estimates for 2023. So if you were one of those people that would normally be making an estimate in September, you have until October to make that payment. So that's nice as well.
Yeah. Also the ones that were due in April and
all the ones
June,
from the year. If you forgot, you're good.
You're good.
You can catch up.
You don't have to do it. No penalty.
If you didn't remember to save all that money, I'm sorry. You have a big bill due in a couple months.
Got time to get a loan.
Yeah. And I'll just say, you know, if you've got a CPA or financial advisor who said, oh yeah, just file your taxes now and get it done, but you owed, they cost you a 5% annual return on the money that you paid in taxes. And I don't like them anymore. So we have that one client who had sold a building and they have like $500,000 of gain or $1 million, something like that. They owed several $100,000 and the accountant told them to file in and pay the tax in January. Just to get it done.
Because they just wanted to get it done. And we were like, wait, they can get interest for another, 3/4 of the year. Oh no, I'm just into that. I mean, it cost them at least $5,000 or $6,000 in lost earnings. So. Really, I want to just go hang myself, when they do this, because like, why are we doing this? It's hard to hear.
It really is. So wait until the last minute if you owe your taxes. Now, if you're getting a refund, get that tax return in if you haven't already, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So that's good advice. Now on with the show. To help us explore advanced funeral options, our guest today is Molly Gleason-Kodama. Molly's an advanced planning advisor with Oakmont Memorial Park and Mortuary in Lafayette. And she's worked in real estate for 25 years, then earned a master's degree in gerontology from the Davis School at University of Southern California in 2012. Molly, welcome to A Place of Possibility.
Hi, Molly.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So the, first thing on my mind about you is how did you get into such a morbid business? You're chugging along on real estate and then whoop, here we go.
Yeah. Let's focus dead people.
Actually, after my real estate career, I met a 94-year-old man that was my girlfriend's dad, and he needed help, and being his advocate in a skilled nursing facility really changed my life. That's when I went back to school and got my master's degree. So there were 10 years in there where I was working in assisted living and memory care. And so I was helping families with that tough decision of, are you going to move them out of their home? If so, are they suitable for assisted living? Are they going to go into memory care? All dementia, medications, all those difficult conversations. And one of the things that I found is the entire time that I was working as a marketing director in that field, I was also dealing with dying and death on a daily basis, because the average age of our residents was 86.
Oh, wow.
And so if you think the conversation about moving out of your home is difficult, try dealing with the decline and, hospice, and do you have any plans? And I was nudging them and, trying to get them to think in advance, and also sometimes in the rooms, in their apartments with them when they were dying, because the family members were uncomfortable. They didn't want to touch them. They were afraid. And so I just went through so much of this for the entire time. I had this kind of dual thing going on. And I really felt a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion for this area. And I thought maybe this is even more needed in our society than what I was currently doing. So I went back to school again and got a mortuary science degree. And so while I was working full time. And so now I am working for Oakmont Memorial Park and Mortuary as an advanced planning counselor advisor. And I'm helping people with all those really tough decisions that nobody wants to talk about. But I help them come out of their shells and make decisions.
Wow.
That's amazing. Bless you for doing this work.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank you. It's really fulfilling.
I'll bet. I'll bet. I'm sure you have to have the right perspective though, right? I mean, I think that if you come into any business or profession, if you come in with an idea and the perspective of, I'm going to help people, then it becomes a very fulfilling thing.
Yeah. And you really are at the most difficult time in a person's life.
Oh, it's really hard, but I love helping people. I wake up every day thinking, okay, I don't know who I'm going to help today, but I'm going to help a bunch of people. And
I love that.
That's great.
And I meet all these different people in my walk of life, and it's really fulfilling.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
Well, stepping away from fulfillment for a moment, let's talk nuts and bolts. Just help our audience understand what different kinds of funeral experiences cost. So, for example, what is the average funeral with a burial cost, and what is a funeral with a cremation cost? So how do you break that down?
So a traditional funeral, they start at around 8,000 to 10,000, and they go up from there. Where things start to get really pricey is when people start adding in expensive merchandise, caskets, services, vehicle rentals, flowers, that's kind of where. But the basic one is about 8 to 10. Okay. And then the cremation costs are anywhere from like $1,500 to upwards of $4,000, depending upon the type of cremation services that you choose. Burial costs can vary depending upon what type of burial or final disposition is chosen. So there are various ways. You can have a traditional burial or cremated remains. You can put a granite boulder under a tree, or you can memorialize it in a traditional way in an urn and in a niche, or some people call it a niche. Most people don't realize that you can bury an urn. You need an outer burial. Yeah, you can. And there are plenty of examples of that. So caskets can be buried or put in a community mausoleum, which is above ground. And today, what a lot of families choose to do is purchase a private estate, which allows families to be together for generations to come. They can traditionally bury them, or they can put their cremated remains inside of that same private estate. And all of these can range from $4,500 up to whatever the family decides to build. And we can definitely build whatever a family desires. And for these, we need a specific quote.
Can I just ask you real quick, those big mausoleum things that you have that are at Oakmont, like I think the Lesher family and some of those other ones, what do those things cost?
Yeah.
$1 million or so, because you buy the land and then you design the mausoleum, and then it's made out of granite, and then it has, markers, which are the signage and all these different things. So, I mean, there are several places up here that are $1 million or more.
Okay.
If someone wants to buy a burial plot, I'd say the least expensive would be about $22,000, and that's for 2 full casket burials, or $11,000 each. If they want an estate or a mausoleum, then it could be $100,000 or more. And there's some extraordinarily, as you know, beautiful mausoleums up here designed by our families to commemorate their loved ones in our cemetery. And that costs upward of $1 million and more.
Yeah. Wow.
So many options. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It sounds like all in, you could still be looking at 30,000 plus, right? If you're going to go do a burial and a traditional funeral with a casket and all that.
Yeah. And again, it kind of it depends on what you choose, but certainly that's within the realm of possibility. Yes.
Okay.
So your job is to help people pre-plan all of this. So instead of passing away and sending their heirs off with their remains, you will help people make these decisions and put everything in place prior to passing away. Can you walk us through the pros of pre-planning your funeral? Why should I do this?
Yes. So just so you know, in my opinion, that there are no cons to pre-planning. In the first 24 hours after someone passes away, there are about 150 questions that have to be answered. And if you don't have a pre-plan, you're dealing with grief and having lost a loved one, and also having to make all of these very difficult decisions in a very short amount of time. And I can't tell you enough how many people that I've seen anguishing over these decisions because they're not sure if that's what their loved one would have wanted. And so it's much better to have it all worked out in advance. 82% of people do not pre-plan. And it's a known fact that 37% premium of overspending happens because of that fact, because they're at that place where they're grieving and they're saying, nothing's too good for my loved one. Whereas when you're making those plans in an unemotional pre-planning space, then you're making good choices and you're not pushed or grieving or upset about anything. And so it just makes, and not to mention locking in the prices. So what you're doing basically is locking in the price for the day that you buy it. And then when you die later on, you come in with your contract and you're getting those original prices.
Yeah. With inflation where it is today, that's becoming, I think, more and more important.
Yeah.
But, I think you and I have both been sitting in that place, in the funeral home, like which casket are we going to pick? And it's stressful. And it's, I think that my loved ones at this point, it would be like my mother making this decision for me. And I think she would. Nothing is too good for my Angela. I would be in a gold casket probably. But what I want is for my body to be donated to science. And I do think that my loved ones would think, oh, they're going to cut her up. They would not like that. And so I could see how even for myself, pre-planning this, my wishes will get met and they don't have to.
Plus, I can imagine that if you let it go and you don't pre-plan, then you're subjecting your family members to just like nothing but fighting in front of you. I've
witnessed a fight about which casket.
What are we going to do? Where's it going to be? You're a cheapskate, all this stuff. Because everybody's grieving and miserable. And it must just bring out the worst in family members.
I was playing Yahtzee at the senior center on Tuesday with this woman who has 5 children. And she told me this story about how some of her children are successful and some of them aren't. And she said, I made all the plans in advance because I didn't want my kids fighting over the money because some of them need it more than others. And so she pre-planned her entire arrangements. And once you pre-plan, those wishes are locked in and no one can change them.
Wow.
So that's a really important point people don't realize. I mean, I could tell you a horror story of, 5 kids and parents planned a big funeral and they spent a lot of money. And this is before these laws were passed. The kids would cash out the funeral and take the money and just cremate their parents. This is what happened. Yeah. This is what happened in the past, but it doesn't happen anymore because the laws have been put into place to protect people. So it becomes irrevocable. You can't change someone's plans.
So what are the major decisions you have to make in this planning process? Just run through them real quick.
So most people don't realize there are 2 sets of arrangements. There's the funeral arrangements and then there are the cemetery arrangement. And there's a big difference between the two. So in the funeral department, if you're going to be traditionally buried, for example, that means that you're going to have to choose the type of service that you want, possibly embalming. which is required if you're going to have an open casket funeral, and so that your body can be preserved. And then we can help guide you through all of those decisions as well. And basic decisions are things like, would you like to be buried or cremated? Would you like above ground or entombment in a mausoleum or an in-ground burial? Would you like to be cremated and placed in a columbarium, which is an indoor niche? Or there are various outdoor options for cremated remains. And as I mentioned before, people don't realize that you could also bury your cremated remains.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be cremated, then you're going to need an alternative container, because they can't just put you in the retort, which is the name of the oven that's used for cremating bodies. And so there are levels and choices of the types of caskets that can be chosen. Some people buy a casket to go into cremation. So there's so many choices for so many things. And in pre-need, it all depends on what you want. So I have studied extensively the different choices, and I spend my days helping people navigate these decisions. And, it's much better to do this when you are sitting down calmly, thinking it through, than when you're dealing with the death of a loved one.
Yeah.
I don't guess anybody asked for the train station option, right?
What's the train? No, what's that?
Yeah, if you're a Yellowstone fan, you would know what that is. Sorry.
Wait, they go.
It's an inside
joke. Wyoming, is that where they take
go across the border and they just throw them in the
Yikes.
Throw them off the cliff. Yeah.
Well, so can I change my mind later once I make these plans? Like, let's say, you know, I choose to be cremated and then something shifts in whatever.
Sure.
And now I want to be buried.
Sure, you can. You can change your mind as long as you have mental capacity. Your family can't change your wishes.
Right.
And so that's the whole point of pre-planning, so that your family makes sure that your wishes are carried out, but you can change your mind. Just come back, tear up that contract, make a new one. Yeah. So,
kind of a random what if, but it popped into my mind. Let's say I've paid to be embalmed and have an open casket funeral, and then I'm maimed in my death, and my family says, nope, obviously I lost my head or something. It's gone. We cannot do the open. Could they then get the refund for the embalming, or is it over and we're just changing our mind enough? You know, I'm just curious. It's kind of random, but.
Well, so even though you lost your head, you still might want to have a funeral with a closed casket.
Yeah. But we paid for embalming, which I imagine costs
more. So that's kind of an iffy thing, because the main thing you want to do is embalm to preserve the body so that it doesn't start to decompose, so that you run the risk of there being a smell. And so even if you've lost your head, I love that expression.
That happens every day, actually.
In mortuary school, I took a class called restorative arts, and we had to make a head out of wax. And we had to make ears and make a nose and make eyes and mouth and everything, so that we practice using that kind of wax, so that if we were embalming someone, if that's what path our careers took, then we would know how to remake parts of people, because the two main things that you see are the face and the hands. So there is a course in mortuary school called restorative arts.
That's, I would imagine.
I bet you could make the best Halloween costume ever.
Yeah. Wow. If I had planning, wouldn't I put it in my trust or my will?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. But one of the things that I'm finding is that estate attorneys, they have a will, they have an estate plan, and it'll say that the person wants to be cremated, and they think that they're done. But the fact is that you still have to make the plans for whatever plans they stated that they wanted in their will or their estate plan. And so that's what I'm really trying to help people understand, is there's a lot more that has to be done than just saying you want to be cremated, because you're still in the same boat if the person dies, and then you still have to make all those arrangements.
Yep. Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
Wow. I was curious about casket options and what drives the price on those, because they vary so much, and where you get it from, the price varies so much. And I was just kind of curious, what are the sorts of options that people have? And then is it the wood, or is it the inlay or the silk? What drives that price?
Okay, so the materials that your casket are made of is what drives the price. So there are different types of woods and metals that you choose, and they depending upon what you choose, can be very expensive. I mean, you can get a basic casket for somewhere around $2,000, but you can spend easily $25,000 on a fancy casket. And there are emblems and little corner pieces and wonderful themed additions that you can add onto your casket, and engraving. I mean, you can't imagine how personalized you can make them. It's really amazing. It's fun. And so there are catalogs, and everything is spelled out very clearly and carefully, so you can make informed decisions and then know exactly what you're getting into before you make any financial commitments.
Yeah.
But I see lots of, themes, imagine themes. I just sold a marker to a woman the other day who's a motorcycle rider, and she put a motorcycle on her marker.
I love seeing that when I'm wandering around. I mean, it's not happening often, but
what they're into, right?
Yeah, I love seeing that. You just learn a little something more than the name.
They have golf, they have fishing, they have tennis.
Noted. You heard it here first. We're putting a calculator.
Sorry. I've been a financial advisor for so long. One of those little financial calculators.
You're really good on that thing too.
Online,
You have to do the equations really differently, like the entries on financial calculators, and he's a machine. Because most of us are like, we forgot to put the plus sign
30-something years,
So I know there are options, like you could go to Costco or you could go to 1-800-Caskets. Can you compare and contrast what you'd get there versus going through someone like you? Is it worth it?
First of all, I just want to say I love Costco, because my husband, David Hines, is an optician at the Richmond store. And we love Costco. So I just want to shout out to Costco. So buying a casket from Costco or from 1-800-Caskets can save you money, but there are some risks that are involved. For example, if you have a casket delivered and it's damaged, how are you going to get it replaced in time for the service? And if it's not the funeral home's responsibility, it's your responsibility if you order the casket yourself. Whereas we have sister companies close by. If there's a problem, we can get a casket similar to that somewhere else. But when you're ordering it on your own, you can save money, but you may be trading the discount for the possibility of problems. And it all depends on what you're willing to do. How much time and understanding that you have. Personally, I want professionals handling my or my loved one's remains, and the peace of mind of knowing that everything is under one roof. The Consumer Affairs Department has a booklet about what your rights are, and we have them here at Oakmont for the public. So we are advocates of your rights and what you can do to save money. And however, we do find that the reasons why people don't buy their own caskets, will it be delivered on time for a service? Most services happen within 72 hours. What will happen if the casket is the incorrect casket? Like they shipped the wrong one, different from what you chose. What would you do if it was defective? And what if it doesn't arrive? Who would you call the day of the service?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Well, who would you call?
Considered that. I just got a bed delivered and the box is all torn up.
Yeah.
And I wonder what's, the wood of the bed, what's inside that box. I haven't
opened. Who needs that stress when you're trying to go to a funeral?
Yeah. That's
right.
That's a good point.
So that's the reality of handling it yourself. So that's why not so many people do it that way.
Okay. That's a really good point. Because I was always thinking that's the way to go.
Yeah, when you look at the prices, it seems black and white.
Yeah,
but
I didn't think about that. That's a good point. That's a good point. So let's say someone goes and does a pre-planned funeral, but then there's some cons to that, right? I mean, for example, you said there were no cons, but to me, I think what happens if you go out of business?
Yeah, that's my biggest.
The mortuary goes out of business.
My first question was, I buy this thing. What if Oakmont goes out of business?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So when you pre-plan or a burial or any kind of pre-planned disposition, such as a cremation, you are prepaying for an insurance policy. Did you know that?
No.
No. Yeah.
Okay. No. So you're not making the check out to the funeral home. You're making it out to the insurance company. So for example, our insurance company is National Guardian Life, or NGL. And they have an A+ rating. They've been in business for 100 years, and thousands of customers have used them for their pre-arrangements. You can look them up on the web, National Guardian Life.
Great.
So because you're making the payments out to the insurance company, even if the funeral home goes out of business, you can still take the policy to another funeral home and they will fulfill it as long as it's written properly.
Yeah.
And it's important to select reputable companies, obviously, to do these transactions with for good and obvious reasons, right?
Right.
And then Oakmont is owned by Carriage Services, which is, I think it's safe to say they're not going out of business. They're the second largest owner of cemetery and mortuary properties in the United States. We were founded in 1991, and they've always had the mission of being the best service provider, the best consolidator, and the best value creator. And so that's why I came to work for them, because I know their reputation, having been in the space for several years now, and Carriage has an amazing reputation. So that's, I believe that they had the right people here and, in the right positions and doing the things that make a difference for families. It's a very caring company, and I run by very smart people that I respect and admire.
Yeah.
Good point. Can I ask, who owns the cemetery? Is it the city, or is it a municipality? Is it a district? What is it? Is it a legal entity? What is it?
Company own it?
Or is it a private property? What is it?
The cemetery is owned by Carriage, but we have an endowment care fund. So the people that buy property here, they don't own the property, but we maintain it through those, what we call ECFs, Endowment Care Fund.
Okay.
And so that is what ensures that the property is maintained.
Yeah.
In perpetuity?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And so and again, because we're owned by Carriage Services, which is a big publicly held company, and we have not only the income, but the ECFs, the endowment care funds, that helps us keep everything really well maintained.
Because, I have my grandparents are in these religious cemeteries, and after the cemetery, I've noticed, and it's happened twice. After the cemetery gets full, the religion just padlocks the gate, turns off the water, and everything starts falling apart. There's no more
ones associated.
There's no more lawns. They just
right. So that is something that is really a much smaller operation than what we have here.
Yeah.
So I have heard that story before, but because we have this endowment care community and we have excellent groundkeepers, many of who've been here for many years, and they do a great job of keeping everything looking beautifully maintained.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. It's gorgeous.
But that's really good to know. And so it sounds like it matters a great deal which company, where you go.
And
I imagine that you said what you're really buying. You're buying an insurance policy. I imagine that insurance brokers, being who they are out there selling these general policies that you could take to any funeral home upon your death. Is that a thing, or are they all tied to a home? Because I would caution people against doing that.
So I'm an insurance agent.
Yeah.
And so I write the policy for my clients. So they don't go anywhere else. They come to me, and then I'm licensed and I write the policy for them. And the check gets made out to National Guardian Life.
Okay.
And one really important point, this is huge. With pre-need, you have payment options. With at-need, meaning if someone has died and you're going into the funeral home to make the arrangements, you have to pay for the whole thing up front. But with pre-need, you can get a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year payment arrangements to make the payments lower and spread them out. But then you can also pay them off at any time. But that's a really important benefit to pre-planning too, that most people don't realize. But in order to be a pre-need person in California, you have to have an insurance license.
Okay, good to know. Oh, that could help a lot of families who are thinking
to be able
through,
to afford it.
Like I've talked to clients who say, I'd like to have a big funeral and a nice burial, but I can't afford it. My kids won't be able to afford it. I didn't know to tell them that they could do a 3 or a 5-year payment plan on something like this.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I can actually run the numbers for them and show them what they can have if they want it, and make the best decision. And they can change those terms too later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hear about these people called plot brokers. And I think that this is what happens when somebody buys a plot and then later decides they don't want it anymore. So we can kind of get it on the secondhand market. Is my understanding of this correct? And should we be using these people or not?
If you have the time and the knowledge and the energy to buy your plot through a broker, you're certainly able to do that. But unless you really understand what you're getting, and there's a lot of room for problems if you use a plot broker when you're just a consumer. So basically you would be buying a plot that doesn't belong to the cemetery anymore because they already sold it. And then you already, the family is reselling it through the plot broker. So it's a kind of a tricky thing. And that's another reason why people don't do that so much, because you're kind of operating on your own out there, like with the potential for issues. And if you don't really know what you're doing, and I don't know about you, but I don't know that much about buying used burial plots, but I
know less than nothing about it. Yeah, right, and I imagine bad actors could be out there, selling you a piece of paper for a plot that doesn't exist.
Maybe, but I got to tell you, the laws around funerals these days are so stringent and strict that because of all the things that happened in the past. But I would say it's not a big issue. It's not. I don't hear about it very much in my day-to-day life, but about buying secondhand burial plots from brokers.
Okay.
Yeah, but they do exist, and I'm sure they're nice people. I just don't know that much about them.
Yeah. Speaking of prior misdeeds, what about people? Let's talk about the Neptune Society, because they've been in the news a few times. Suppose someone's on a really strict budget, right? They don't have any extra money and they can't afford to pay for mom, or, mom just died. What are the pros and cons of going just directly to the Neptune Society versus going through your local funeral director to do the cremation?
So Neptune is, certainly one really popular option, and it's what I've been referring to as a less expensive option. As you said, they pick the body up, they cremate it, and then they either scatter the ashes for you or they put them in an urn and return them to the family. So once upon a time, the Neptune Society, because it was a membership plan, and it's no longer a membership today. It's now owned by a very large company similar to ours. And the cremations are running around $2,700 to $2,900 today. So it's actually can be the same amount as you could get going into a traditional funeral home. Wow. They don't have a place for a service if you want one. And so we have 2 chapels here. So if you want to have a service here, we have 2 beautiful options. And if you don't care about that personal touch of a funeral director, then you can just have your body picked up and taken. But then there's the other thing of when you're doing it here, we have our own crematory. So your loved one isn't going somewhere else first and then they're bringing them back later or whatever. Yeah. We have your loved one in our care the entire time once we pick them up. And that's, I think, an important thing for me to know about where my remains or my loved one's remains would be. And I think you pay a little more for that, but for me, that's what I'm willing to pay for, that reassurance that it's all going to be safe and smooth.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would say for me, the smooth part would be really important. For, a similar price, I would rather knock 5 to-dos off my list and, let you handle it versus I got to go here. So we got all these new options. As I was preparing for this show, I was just kind of Googling, like, what can you do with your body after you die? And you've got green burials, mushroom suits, aquamation, recomposition, all of these things, really marketing to the environmentally inclined. And so I have 2 questions around this. One is burying people a real environmental issue? Are we running out of space to do this? Is it bad for the environment? And then 2, if people want to know more about this, where would you send them?
So yeah, I believe these are very real issues, but so, aquamation is where they put you in a little tube and it's 5% chemicals and it takes about 4 hours to break the body down, as opposed to cremation where you have, just a quick 2 hours is roughly what it takes to cremate someone at 2,000 degrees. And then there's the new one that's coming, which is the composting. So it's now legal in Washington, Oregon, and Colorado. And we're trying to get it here. It almost passed, but it's been put off for about a year now. So that's coming. And they put you in a little capsule with some shavings and some plants and things. And you have right now on your body microbes that are that are, you know, living. And when the minute that you die, those microbes start turning on you and eating you. And so when you put someone into a composting tube and put them into the little building, then it takes 30 days for them to break down by the little microbes.
Wow. That's amazing. And then you're left with fertile soil?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
oh
right.
my gosh. That's so interesting.
You get a box of soil that is your loved one, and you can
you get it back.
Go do whatever you want.
My tomato garden could be my mother.
That's right.
Tomatoes.
Well, that sounds like you, actually.
I would totally do that.
I think you would totally do that. Yeah,
I wouldn't put it on my loved ones to deal with that after.
Those are the heirloom tomatoes.
They don't grow tomatoes?
No, the heirloom tomatoes.
Real heirloom.
Oh boy, I like that.
Okay, sorry. You asked for it.
Cute. That's cute. So, you know, I think it's safe to say that not all funeral directors or any profession, certainly not all financial advisors, are ethical. And, you know, they don't have probably your background and your reason for doing what they do. And, you know, there are unethical sales practices in any business, you know, so how do consumers protect themselves from unethical? You have people at the worst possible time in their life, which I know is another reason why they should pre-plan. I get that. But I mean, what if they haven't pre-planned? They're there.
Right. When you're trying to pre-plan, like let's say I'm sending a client out to pre-plan, what red flags should they be looking out for?
I guess pre or post, you know, what if you hadn't pre-planned and then you're there and you're just miserable and really emotional and stuff, and you could be taken advantage.
I got to tell you, and that's kind of a thing of the past. For the most part, there are so many disclosures, and like, for example, if you're 65, you have to give a disclosure to somebody that you have to, when you go to their house to make funeral arrangements, you have to call them 24 hours in advance. You have to, there's all these things that you have to do. And because of all of the problems that existed in the past, today, it is really hard to do something illegal and not get in a lot of trouble and get your license revoked and, you know, get taken away or go to jail or whatever. But again, it comes down to, if you come to a place like Oakmont, you're not going to run into that. If you go to a place that's really off the beaten path and, you know, then maybe, but it's not something in the big city that, you know, I hear about. I have heard about people upselling, like trying to get people to buy more expensive coffin, a casket for the service, things like that.
Can I push you on that? Can I challenge you on that? Because I had the personal experience with a mortuary where we were taking care of my father-in-law, and they were showing it. They were trying to upsell us these concrete liners for the casket, and they showed pictures on the wall of, here's a casket, here's a liner that, you know, doesn't have whatever, I don't know, but, and it's got like, they show the water level going up above the casket. So like the casket's going to be underwater. You don't want that, do you? So if you pay for another $2,000 or $3,000, you get an upgraded liner that will be waterproof. I'm like, what? That seems like. And
you thought that wasn't.
I thought that was
true.
really taking advantage of people. My thing. What do you say to that? Yeah.
But if you have like an area that's flooding, then you could have water that would go over the outer burial container. And if you do, so the person's inside the outer burial container, they're going to decompose faster if there's water leaking in, right? But if you buy a more expensive one, then yes, it can be watertight. And yes, you have the peace of mind of knowing that you paid more for it and they're not going to decompose as quickly. But I don't know where that was, but we have the same thing here where we have levels of outer burial containers. And if you think about it, if you put every casket into the ground in a cemetery with no outer burial container, then what would your land look like? Because as the dirt starts to sift around and move up and down. So what they do is it provides that beautiful uniformity that you see in a cemetery. And we don't consider those things, but it's one of the things on the list that I have to charge people for. But I always recommend our Monticello, which is our least expensive model, because it's basically, it's fine. Okay. But I have seen families come in here and spend a ton of money on out of burial container, and they put the very expensive casket inside. So they've bought a really expensive casket. They don't want to put an inexpensive outer burial container around it. So they get an upgraded model. So it's not all suspect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It sounds like it comes down to, like anything in life, a lot of personal preference and values. You're very utilitarian. He's gone, he's in the ground, he's going to decompose. I don't care how long it takes.
That's right.
Right. Whereas other people would have a different perspective on that. Like,
fair enough.
I don't want to think about my wife,
decomposing.
So, that makes a lot. I never thought about what happens to the land.
Yeah,
that's
the land
really
idea.
Isn't that amazing though? All the little like.
That's why we're having a conversation. There's so much we don't know.
Learn something every time, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So you work for Oakmont in Lafayette. The street that goes to my house dead ends at Oakmont. And I love this place. It's where I drove my babies when they couldn't sleep. I'd drive up the hill and I would do circles so I could enjoy the beautiful view while my children scream in the back seat.
Right.
So I would love, for you to talk about what makes Oakmont in particular so special, kind of a chance to plug that.
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Thank you.
Give us the pitch. Give us the Oakmont pitch.
Okay. So Oakmont Memorial Park and Mortuary has been here since 1956. And we have been caring for individuals of all cultural backgrounds and diverse walks of life. So as you walk through the cemetery, you can see Greek, Catholic, Asian, Muslim, many other sections here, which is really, very much a part of what Lafayette is about too. So many different families, languages spoken, customs. One of the most amazing things is walking around and seeing all these different ways that people have chosen to be remembered. There are lots of trees, a running brook, fountains, spectacular views of Mount Diablo and Briones. And then we also have, as I was mentioning before, 2 beautiful chapels for services. One of the most attractive things about Oakmont is for the consumer is that it's a veritable one-stop shop. So where you can purchase anything you'd like within the realm of funerals and cemetery property. And we have a crematory. Okay. So you don't have to go anywhere else. You can come here and get all of your needs met. And then this ensures that your loved ones are not being taken somewhere else and then brought back. Right. They're here. Once you give them to us, they stay here with us in our care. So I would say, all of those things are why I chose to work here. And I have an insurance license and a cemetery license. So I can help any family that comes to me or person with any aspect of this process that they want. And I'm happy to meet with them and talk to them and educate them, show them options and the possibilities. Never any hard sell, just, caring for people and helping people is what I love to do. I just want to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to talk about this because it's a difficult conversation for people to have. And I have a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion and would enjoy, helping people through this if they want my help.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Great. Yeah. And you seem like the person I would want to be talking to in this situation,
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here with us and having this really, really important conversation. We appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank
Molly.
you.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for being with us today. If you are enjoying listening, you can like and subscribe to the show so you never miss one. If you have a question or a topic idea, you could always reach out to us at info@aplaceofpossibility.com. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with us to learn more about what's going on with your financial situation and possible solutions, you can click on the link in the show notes or right on your screen to schedule an appointment with us. We are also still offering our ebook, The Investment Answer. It is a wonderful book where you can learn more about the philosophy and science behind how we invest our clients in our own assets. What I love about this book is it's such an easy read. It's very simple, and it's written for people without finance degrees.
That's right.
Yeah. So Rich, take us home.
Okay. Thank you very much for being with us today. We hope you enjoyed the show. And remember, until next time, you're invested and so are we. Take care, everybody.
Bye.